Some breaking news for you this hour, as CNN has just projected that the Republican David Valadao will hold on to his California House seat. Obviously, we are watching all of these final races very closely to see the majority on Capitol Hill. I want to get right to CNN's Harry Enten. And Harry, can you just first bring us up to speed now that we have this win tonight in California, holding on to that seat? How close are Republicans to having control of the House of Representatives?
Slowly but surely, they're making their way to the magic 218 seats, Kaitlan. Look where the Republicans are right now. We projected they have won 216 seats, only 207 for Democrats, of course, 218 being the magic number. But, of course, how many seats are they ahead in? At this particular point, Republicans are ahead in 222 seats, a little bit more than the 218, but not so much. Democrats at 213. But I would not be surprised if the number for Republicans actually end up with is actually a little bit smaller. Why? I want you to take you out to California, where, of course, we just called that race. Let's take a look at some of the uncalled races. First off, let's take a look at this race. California's 13th district, just a little bit north of that race we just called. John Duarte only up by 2 points, still 73% of the estimated vote is actually reporting, still 27% still out. That margin has been closing, Kaitlan. It's been closing. There's also another race in California where the margin has been closing. Let's go down to Southern California. We're going to go right here to an Orange County seat. Michelle Steele at this particular point, look at that. Her advantage is only 2,272 votes. It's less than a point. The margin has been tighter and tighter and tighter, Kaitlan. So it wouldn't be surprising to me if Republicans actually end up a little bit closer to 220 than 222 seats.
Okay, so if that's how this works out, obviously they would still hold the majority, but it would be a slim majority. And I'm down here in Palm Beach, where Trump has picked 2 House Republicans to serve in his administration. How could that complicate the math for Republicans?
Oh, how could it complicate the math? Well, first off, let's just say that Donald Trump, in fact, didn't put anybody in his cabinet, and we know that he's going to. Right now, the GOP may have a record small House majority. 222 would be tied for the lowest ever since there were 50 states in the Union. If it dropped down to 221, it would be the lowest on record heading into a Congress. Now, you mentioned, of course, that he may be selecting 2 folks from Congress. Let's take a look, right? Elise Stefanik and Waltz, of course, from Florida for National Security Advisor and UN Ambassador. That could end up with a majority at 220, maybe 219 seats. My goodness gracious, what a small margin for error, Kaitlan.
Yeah, a small margin for error obviously means basically none. Harry Enten, thank you as always for breaking down the math with us.
Thank you, and enjoy the weather.
My Capitol Hill source tonight is a New York Republican who just won re-election in a competitive district. Congressman Mike Lawler joins us now, and it's great to have you here, Congressman. Given what you just heard from Harry, you know, Republicans are poised right now, it looks like, to have a trifecta of control in Washington. But are you worried about the margins in the House, given that 2 of your Republican colleagues have been picked to serve in Trump's administration?
Well, first, Kaitlan, let me say President Trump made a great selection in Elise Stefanik for UN Ambassador and Mike Waltz for National Security Advisor. These are 2 tremendous members of Congress who will do a phenomenal job in the administration. Obviously, anytime you lose members throughout the course of a Congress, it makes it, a tighter margin. And we've been living through that in this Congress. We have passed a lot of bills through the House in a divided government that, frankly, Chuck Schumer and Senate Democrats refuse to move. I think by having complete control in Washington with the White House, the Senate, and the House, it will make it easier to pass legislation with small majorities. But obviously, there's very little room for error. And so we're going to have to work through it as a conference, negotiate, find bipartisan compromise where possible. And frankly, hopefully, many of my Democratic colleagues do not engage in resistance 2.0, but actually work with House Republicans and Senate Republicans to address many of the problems that we're facing as a country. The American people spoke loud and clearly on last Tuesday that they want us to move in a different direction.
Yeah, and we've seen how even some Republicans have, played a factor in that resistance there. We'll see what that looks like. But you just mentioned Mike Waltz, who's going to be National Security Advisor, Elise Stefanik, U.S. Ambassador to the UN. What do you make of Trump's pick tonight to run the Department of Defense, Pete Hegseth? Any thoughts on him?
Well, I think the president is obviously putting forth his national security apparatus, including John Ratcliffe at the CIA. I know there's been reports about Marco Rubio for Secretary of State, though I don't believe it's been finalized. But look, Pete Hegseth obviously is a decorated war veteran, 2 Bronze Stars, Army Commendation Medals, served in Iraq and Afghanistan, has been heavily involved in military affairs as well as veterans issues, and certainly is extremely knowledgeable. I think obviously there'll be a Senate confirmation process, and he will obviously be able to better articulate his views on the Department of Defense. I think there's no question we need to rebuild the military and reform the Department of Defense. We have been working through that this Congress.